On this episode of Money Matters with Jim Doyle, Inheriting a Business, an Unplanned Journey, featuring guest Adam Mills of Four Winds Brewing with Jill Van Geen and Elyssa Lockhart. Plan more, worry less. This is Money Matters with Jim Doyle.
Family businesses are the backbone of the Canadian economy, but experience difficulty moving from one generation to the next. They enjoy a competitive advantage, a willingness to overlook short-term gains by investing in families. Founders are often tasked with taking the business risk of envisioning, managing, and growing a business long-term. The legacy of successful family businesses over multiple generations is a rare experience. One can only imagine business conversations shared around the family dinner table with the various generations. One such family is the Mills Paint family. Today, we'll explore inheriting a business, the unplanned journey. Welcome. From the Mills Paint family legacy to Four Winds Brewing, we'll be joined in the studio shortly by Adam Mills. But first, let's take a tour of the brewery.
So I'm gonna draw off a sample of a new beer that we're working on.
Together we built the company and did everything from actually building out the brewery to installing the equipment, and we hired out a few trades in terms of electricians and plumbers and things like that. But for the most part, the four of us built the business and kind of haven't looked back since. Our great-grandfather came from Ireland in the 20s, opened up a hardware store in Gastown in 1930, and turned that into a paint manufacturing company over the years. My dad grew up in that business and we grew up in that business. It's kind of the only thing we ever really knew. The paint business, Mills Paint, lasted from 1930 until 2006. Our dad didn't really want to stay retired, and so he was still just kind of itching to do something else, and he was 55 at the time. He went to boat building school. We thought maybe that could be a business at some point. We kind of quickly realized that there was so much labor involved in that it probably wouldn't become a super profitable business. And so brewing beer in the boat shop became kind of the priority over the years.
A little bit of pine in the back. Our first batch, we kind of laughed at each other after brewing and be like, let's do a brewery one day, let's open a brewery. And it was a joke, but I think it was a sincere joke that we actually really meant it.
The discussions became a little bit more real around the dinner table and, trying different beers and this and that. It was great timing, and 2013 was a good time to open up a brewery, and we got a lot of recognition early on for having, great products and a good brand, and we're lucky that we were able to get into the market at that time. So our father Greg passed away in May, right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a complete shock. He showed no signs of any health issues, and so it was devastating. He was our president and our day-to-day bookkeeper and our controller. So that was a massive loss for us as a family and a company. We rallied together and knew that the one thing that we had to do was ensure that this business could sustain itself, and that was a huge challenge. And so we had to bring in some consultants and learn a lot about the day-to-day bookkeeping and administrative side of things that he took care of. And so it was a huge challenge, a huge learning curve. We feel stronger than ever from having to go through that. And we also brought our sister on, who has spent many years with Cactus Club in the head office there. And so she's now doing our bookkeeping and our accounting side of things. And so we've kept it within the family, and we've become a tighter, stronger knit family and company as a result. But absolutely devastating, and we miss him every day, and this is our opportunity to really honor his legacy.
When we come back, we'll have Adam Mills with us.
He certainly sheltered us from the financial side of the business. My brother and I were involved in running the business.
When you started your business, how prepared were you for the realities of running the business?
I was absolutely unprepared.
Welcome back. We're now joined by Adam Mills. Now, I understand the Four Winds Brewery was started as a side business, and I think at some point there was a question of whether it was going to continue. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, that's fair. We started off actually in probably 2008 and 9 when my brother and my dad got really interested in home brewing. And so they started to brew beers together in my brother's kitchen, my dad's kitchen, and got really excited about how the beers were turning out. And so the wheels started turning, and the conversations started happening, and eventually it became a more of a real type of a conversation regarding could this be a viable business.
Now, it must have been great working with your dad in those early days. Okay, what was your role when you first started in this?
Well, when we first started, I was, of course, involved in a lot of the original discussions revolving around the idea of opening a brewery. But like I said, we didn't know sort of how big it would be and whether or not I'd have a full-time position there. I had my own contracting business where I was doing commercial painting, actually. My role when I joined on became kind of the creative side for marketing and working with our graphic designer and designing all of the labels and logos and things like that. And so it became sales and marketing.
Now, your dad had a ton of business acumen, and like an awful lot of the business owners out there, everything's kind of upstairs. Okay?
Absolutely.
Is that similar to what went on in your family?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my dad had a ton of experience. He managed a pretty big business for the bulk of his adult life, and so that was Mills Paint. It was our family business in the past, and so he learned how to run a business and sort of the general management duties there, and that carried over into Four Winds. And yeah, certainly it was all kind of in his head. He had his own methods and systems and things like that, and he was very good at what he did. But yeah, kept it to himself. Yeah.
Love that history. It's so rich. Okay. Let's listen to Jill Van Gyn as she talks about the realities of running a business and moments of self-doubt.
Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to ask, when you started your business, how prepared were you for the realities of running the business?
I was absolutely unprepared. When I came into the business of peanut butter, which is a very specific industry, I had to start from square one. So the first step was just figuring out, what it is I need to do to formalize the business process. And I think that was one of the things that I was the most unprepared for, because you think about the excitement of starting a business, and I've got to create the Instagram, and who's my market and who can I sell my product to. But when it comes down to it, it's the paperwork, it's the insurance, it's the business licenses, it's the legal, the banking. All of that stuff can be really difficult to overcome.
Do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who, like yourself, kind of just came into the journey and it's a bit unexpected?
The best entrepreneurs and the most successful business people in the world experience self-doubt. You will experience it, and it is okay. There will be failures. And if you have the ability to embrace the failure, if you have the ability to say, I am doubtful of my abilities today, but I will try to believe in myself tomorrow, that is good enough. And I just would encourage people to not lean too much into that negative self-talk.
So I got two bits for you here, okay? One is working with your dad. Is there any possibility that he might have sheltered you a little bit from the realities of running a business, and if that might have led to a moment or two of self-doubt?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he certainly sheltered us from the financial side of the business. My brother and I were involved in running the business, but he carried that load and held it tight. And certainly I think he did that to protect us in some ways and allow us to flourish in our creative roles.
Now, we've known that a lot of business owners, they tend to share information on a need-to-know basis, okay? And when you're trying to run a business, how was that working with your dad?
That was my dad's style. Yeah, no, definitely. He was not a tremendously great communicator, and so he's a man of few words. And when he told you about something, you knew it was important, and so he would definitely let you know on a need-to-know basis about these important financial issues.
So unfortunately, we lost your dad, and you and your brother were thrust into the role of wearing all the hats, running the company.
Yes.
How did those early days go?
It was challenging. Yeah, it was a very unexpected passing. We did not see it coming, and neither did he. And it was daunting, to say the least. We had to sort of uncover how he handled that side of the business and figure out his systems and try to reverse engineer his way of thinking about those things. And because he had his own systems, and of course he came from the 80s and the 90s, and so they were a little bit different from some of the more modern systems that some of our friends and colleagues have in the industry. And so that was definitely a challenge, trying to figure out how he did things.
So I'm hearing a process of discovery.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with things they don't tell you about taking over the family business.
Fairness may not be the same as equality or equity.
Welcome back. Let's continue chatting with Adam Mills. Now, working with business families, one thing that we hear from siblings quite often, that's dad's advisor. You inherited your dad's advisors, okay? How did that process go for you?
They didn't see it coming, like none of us did, and so we set up meetings with them, and just it actually went quite well. I think that because they had such a great relationship with Greg, they were really in it to try to help us through the time and help us kind of understand the dynamics of their relationship with Greg, and how they helped him, and the processes there. And so it actually went quite well, and we were very happy that we had some people to lean on, some professionals. So
I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a tough one here, okay? Was there any relationship already with the current people, professional advisors that were there, or was it like, hi, I'm the son?
Well, because Brent and I were shareholders, minority shareholders in the business before Greg, passed, and we ended up inheriting his shares. We were involved in several meetings, shareholder structure, that kind of stuff, and so we had met them and been involved in a few meetings. But yeah, more or less the communication was between Greg and them. So it was the start of a new relationship.
So taking over a business, there's banking relationships, there's suppliers relationships, there's HR relationships, okay? And forging these new relationships, did you have to forge new ones, or like we said, just taking over and building on what was already there?
In some cases, new relationships, and in most cases, just taking over what was already there. Brent and I were already in charge of the most of the purchasing, and so we had a lot of those relationships. When it came to the banks, that was interesting. We had to, take over the bank account. Learn what Greg was doing in terms of reporting to the government and different things like that are specific to the liquor industry. So there was a lot of challenges there and learning there. Yeah, but it was just day by day. Just okay, what do we have to do today to help smooth this transition and put us on the right path? So.
I can only imagine some of those early days were rather long.
Yes.
Let's listen to Elyssa Lockhart as she talks about inheriting a business and how equal might not always be fair.
Elyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Assume that we had mom and dad and they were in business together. And mom wanted to be fair. And so in her will, she structured it so that each of her 3 children received an equal ownership in the business. One of the kids is already active in the business. What sorts of challenges could this present?
One child has been putting a lot of himself or herself into a business, and it's their only financial support professionally. So I feel that it's a real challenge when parents view equal ownership as the only fair way of dividing a family enterprise. Fairness may not be the same as equality or equity. And maybe that child who's operational receives 1/3 of the estate in shares in the business and then purchases the remainder from the estate.
So when you're helping business owners, who have recently inherited the business, what are some of the biggest gaffes you've seen?
One of the gaffes that I see when a child has been held at bay is that they have all of these great innovative ideas and they want to put their stamp on the business very quickly. We're an owner now, we finally have the freedom to make and affect change, but maybe we should listen. We should open our ears and we should ask questions. How did mom do this? Or how did dad do this? What would dad do in this situation? Why did that work?
I like Elyssa's comments about asking questions. So I'm going to ask you, were all of your siblings involved in the business at that time?
No, not all of us. I have 2 brothers and a sister. My 2 brothers were involved. Brent, who's our brewmaster, our head brewer. Our brother Sean does the odd jobs, works in packaging, and focuses on his music. So he's not as involved and not involved in management. Our sister, on the other hand, was not involved in the business at all, had a great career elsewhere. And but when Greg passed, we thought it was the opportune time to ask Brooke if she'd like to join us. And she had some financial experience and a little bit of bookkeeping and things like that. And so she came on board to take his place as a sort of day-to-day bookkeeping. So we're now all involved. At the time, we weren't, though.
You had a magic wand, okay? And there's an opportunity for a do-over, okay? With regards to how your dad structured things or how they came about, would there be anything there you might like to share?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was, when Greg was we were all co-founders, but Greg raised all the capital and put in his own money, and so he was 100% owner, the only shareholder at the very beginning. And it took Brent and I quite a while of convincing for him to allow us to come on board as partners and official shareholders. And so maybe in hindsight, I would structure it that way from the beginning, and I might have the foresight to think a little bit more about future key employees and things like that we might want to bring into the business. And so maybe I'd do it that way, but it's worked out well as is too. So
when we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of governance structures.
I think one of the things that we recognized was that we don't know everything, and it's okay to not know everything.
As businesses grow, the need for business systems increase. Now, I understand that you brought in an industry consultant, okay, and that was kind of a game changer for you. Would you like to share a bit about that?
I think one of the things that we recognized was that we don't know everything, and it's okay to not know everything, and we all have strengths and weaknesses, and so we thought, okay, well, let's bring some people in that we know, and to help us through this transition and help us sort through the various financial and administrative systems that we have in place, and that was a key game changer for us and really set us off on a trajectory that we are on now. So it was great. I happen to know somebody in the industry, in the beer industry, who has great accounting knowledge and came from the software world, and also got involved in the beer industry, owns breweries, and so he was the perfect person to kind of ask about this stuff. And he had actually, everybody kind of goes to him, so he started his own consulting business to help breweries sort of systemize and integrate all of their various systems into something more streamlined. And so he really helped us with that. In hindsight, I would probably do things a little differently, looking back, but you learn from your mistakes, and I think that's the key, is that those are learning opportunities, and that's where growth happens, and certainly you can look back and think, hey, I would have done it differently, but you also wouldn't have learned the lessons that you learned.
Let's pull that Band-Aid off. What do you mean by, what would you like to do differently?
So just recognizing maybe when you've grown too quickly or you've over-leveraged yourself, and just having that foresight, I think. I don't even know what I would do differently, but I know that there were some growing pains that were challenging to get through.
Now, something we experience from business owners, they love the creative side, but something that's sometimes not so much fun, the HR side of things. How is that in your world these days?
Yeah, it's a day-to-day challenge for sure. You're managing a lot of people, and
It's kind of the fun part of the business too, in a sense. Like I do enjoy that. I like the relationships with our employees, our staff. We kind of think of it as a family. Actually, we're a family business, and so that's kind of extended out into our employees. And I like to think that we treat our staff really well, and at least we try to. And so there's a bit of an extended family dynamic there, and we hope to continue with that. So.
Well, Adam, I want to thank you for your contributions to today's show.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, just because you've been given the keys to the business doesn't mean that you can successfully run it. One glaring shortfall of many family businesses is a lack of communication around important matters. Imagine what happens when a child inherits a business never having been asked whether they want to run it one day. As a financial planner working with family business owners, it's about asking the tough questions. What would happen to your business if you couldn't come in tomorrow? By getting to know the needs and wants of the various generations, there can be an opportunity to make a profound impact and help business families navigate these complex events. Now, I wish we had more time. I want to thank Adam Mills, Jill Van Gyn, and Elyssa Lockhart for sharing their thoughts on money matters. Because financial aspects touch so many elements of our lives, it pays to get great advice. Plan more, worry less.